Welcome to the Hidden Why podcast, episode 1073, my interview with Marc Sholes, discussing his new book, Reset Your Romantic GPS. Enjoy. Hey Marc, welcome to the Hidden Why podcast. Great to have you here today.
Thank you. It's really nice to be here. I appreciate it.
All the way over in the US.
Yeah, New York City.
New York City. Expensive rents, I imagine.
Very.
Hey, Marc, welcome to the show. I know you've got a new book out, which we're going to jump into today, Reset Your Romantic GPS. So potentially good for everyone out there listening to the show today. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, what you do, and what led you to writing this book.
Yeah, so I'm a psychoanalyst in New York City, which is just like a psychotherapist. And I've been practicing for about 30 years here. Mm-hmm. Most of my work has to do with individuals and couples and relationships. And one of the main issues that people bring in have to do with their kind of repeatedly being drawn to the kind of person for a relationship who consistently can't meet the person's needs, and why people are drawn to certain kinds of people.
You're saying that's fairly common?
It's very common. Yeah, it's quite common.
Well, both in our romantic relationships and everyday relationships, or?
Mostly important relationships, relationships that, touch a person's dependency needs, and people who are important in our lives. And so there's something out there. So I wrote the book really because there's an idea around. There's a theory called attachment theory, which has to do with it's a language of connecting, and it's a language that we learn when we're very young. Okay. And that kind of language is how we know to be connected. And if that language, if you grow up in a more chaotic house or a less attuned house, it's still going to be the language that you have learned how to connect. So the book is really about becoming aware of our attachment styles so that we have more of a choice to pick people who are more likely to meet our needs or to be attuned to our needs. And that's not always the easiest thing to change your language, to change your relational language. And I'll tell you a little bit about, a secure attachment and insecure attachment, which is really the main theme to this. So in a secure attachment, right, an infant comes into the world and the caretakers are attuned, hopefully in a good enough way, to the child's dysregulation, their needs for comfort and attachment, their needs for touch and closeness, hunger and discomfort. And so when a child feels responded to enough, a child internalizes two main things. One is that their needs are okay. It's okay to have these needs. And two, that the world is going to respond to them in a good enough way. And so they internalize this experience that they're okay, that they're going to be regulated, and they internalize a sense of security. Mm-hmm. They go out into the world with kind of this life jacket of sense of security, and they meet obstacles and challenges in the world in a way that is challenging, but it doesn't feel overwhelming, and it doesn't feel destabilizing, because they have this sense of internalized safety.
Right.
Insecure attachment, the flip side, is an environment where the caretakers are much less attuned to the child's needs, more inconsistent in responding to them, or, just completely unconscious and just terribly at responding, and misattuned. And so what happens is two things happen for this child. A, the child internalizes the sense that their needs are not okay. That's why they're not getting met. And B, what they internalize, what they become preoccupied with is the other, right? They become preoccupied with the caretaker, and they try to accommodate in order to feel connected to their caretaker. So the sense of attachment now, the responsibility of the attachment is on the child, not from the caretaker. And B, they internalize. So what they internalize, their security is outside themselves.
Yeah.
Sorry, that didn't sound so clear. Because they haven't internalized this sense of safety, their job is to meet the need of the parent or the caretaker in order to feel attached to the child. So they go out into the world without this sense of security. They go out into the world looking for that security in the other, which is a very different experience.
Okay, so if we're feeling a sense of security in some manners, we won't go out there searching for it, but the insecure attachments that we've been brought up with, potentially we're looking out there externally to find that security.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
So I guess each of us has some levels of that.
Yes, it's on a continuum. We all have some of that. But when when it's polarized, and that becomes, when the sense of security is, you really don't have it until you're connected to the other. Now you're dependent on that other, right? You have to accommodate to that other. It's a very different kind of experience. And the sort of tragedy about that, or the irony, or whatever it is that the person who's looking for the security in the other is usually drawn to the very same kind of person who wasn't available to the child to begin with, because that's the language that they learned.
Yeah.
And if they were to meet somebody who
was
actually more attuned to them, yeah, it's not good. No. And attunement feels uncomfortable.
So why would we go out there finding someone that actually doesn't provide that need, even though that's what we're looking for? Yeah, obviously, you said it's the language, but
yeah, well, it's our first language. We look for it for two reasons. One, because it is what we know. It is what an insecurely attached person knows to be the language of connectedness. That's how they learn to connect, by subordinating the self and accommodating to the other. That is, in fact, how they learn to feel connected. So there's that. It's what they know. The other is the hope or the longing that if they could just get it right, if they could just, be super attuned to the other, or just get it right, then they would get that kind of love that they didn't get. So there's a longing to redo or undo what was done. And they're both not, both those things are going to lead to failure.
Yeah. So how do we shift that and readjust our guidance?
Yeah, good question. So, the first thing that a person needs is to become aware that they even, have this guidance, that they have to be aware that they see that who they're drawn to, there's a pattern. So first is awareness. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot written about attachment theory. There's a lot, one of the benefits, if there are any, of this whole COVID fiasco is mental health has really taken, come to the foreground. It's spoken about, it's talked about. It's on TikTok, it's on, all sorts of ways, to find out about this kind of stuff. So learning about this is easy.
Yeah.
But awareness is the first step.
Yeah.
And there are a number of there are a number of ways to become aware, that are accessible to us.
Would there be like a trigger in the relationship that something's not right, or is that sort of the awareness you're talking about? Like, how do we?
Well, that would be good. I mean, so for instance, in dating, I have a lot of patients who see, when they don't hear back from somebody, they become much more focused on the person they're not hearing back from than the person they are hearing back from. And there's a sense that the person they are hearing back from, there's just not that kind of chemistry that draws them, but they're very drawn to the person who is not getting really back to them in a timely way.
Yeah.
Now, that is a clue, and to be able to make the decision to move on as opposed to pursue somebody from the beginning who's less available, that makes a big difference. It saves a lot of time.
I feel that I mean, there's always that honeymoon period as such, right, in a relationship,
Oh, yeah.
in which
Yes.
it seems like we're attracted for, not for the needs necessarily, but just the attraction essentially. And then when that ends, whether it's a year, 6 months, 5 years,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people go through this, and I think the world's changing in how hard we, fight on. Because I think people just take the easy route these days and say, you know what, why push on? I'm just going to retreat and say this is not for us, and whether it's amicable or not. But it seems like there's that honeymoon period where, we don't really get the chance to assess, hey, is this person meeting our needs?
Yeah. Well, that is very true. I mean, and I tell my clients who are single and dating that it takes 6 months to really get a sense of a person.
Yeah.
Right. So when that honeymoon, that's really where character emerges, right? Um, you can tell somebody's character over about 6 months, and when that falling in love or honeymoon period ends, that's when the relationship begins. I mean, that's really the beginning of a relationship. And one of the problems for the more insecurely attached person is once they get connected, even if they feel like the person is not really the person that they should be with, it's very, very hard to move away once that's been activated for them. The anxiety of trusting themselves, of the loss that and the mourning that goes on, in with separation, it's very difficult for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're right. People do back out these days. They don't really appreciate that the relationship is really all about after the honeymoon period.
So you're talking about more the beginning of the relationship, finding the right person, or are you talking about any stage in between this with your book?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this is meant for people who are looking, who haven't been able to be successful in finding their partner.
Yeah.
But it also has to do with, the relationships that we're in. And in order to grow, you have to be able to take risks. You have to be able to if you have a lot of shame about yourself or about your needs, you have to be able to grow and come out with them, and trust the partner is different from, your past experiences, hopefully. So it's not just a select group of single people. I mean, we all can learn from this kind of thing.
Yeah. Do you think there's a link here between why there's so many more single people nowadays and so many people going through divorce, as far as this idea of not matching up with the right partner to begin with? Or what are your thoughts there? Obviously, you deal with it all the time.
It's a very good question. which I talk about a lot with
Mm.
people and patients. And um, yeah, I think that there is a way um, where people don't want to do the hard work of um, of what a relationship is,
Yeah.
and they have a fantasy that the other is going to meet, all of their unmet needs, and that is not, what another person can do for us. That's much more of a fantasy. I mean, at best, they can understand our needs, and sometimes they can meet our needs, but it's not going to it's not going to undo anything that happened to anybody, from their growing up period. So I do think people take the easy way out sometimes, and I do think that there's a misunderstanding of like chemistry over character. A lot of people are
What
looking
do you
for
mean by
that
that?
dopamine.
Chemistry over character.
Well, that sense of, well, I feel this thing, I feel this kind of longing, or I feel this kind of connection. And when that feeling dissipates,
Yeah.
so does the reason they're with the person, as opposed to character, when you are with somebody who really is there for you, who really does have your back. And you have to live with the good and the bad. And people seem to tend to run away from that at times.
100%.
You know,
Well, it's just we, we have a lack of patience in this world, and a lack of we want everything instantly, and that's
yeah.
just that's just going to be the reality of the world, I think. um I mean, do you look at it from a relationship point of view? How do we work with that? Like, how do we work with each other's needs and address that in a relationship that's beyond the honeymoon, and perhaps one of the partners or both partners are feeling like their needs aren't met? Do we address it, or do we retreat and say, look, this is not for us, and that's fair enough? Because I assume potentially there's a lot of people that perhaps just aren't compatible and never were.
Yeah, that's true. But you have to be able to share what your needs are in
Mm,
order to see if they can get met.
mm.
You have to make it, you be willing to be vulnerable, and to reveal who you are and what you need. I mean, that's different from just being needy, right? But being able to let your partner know, the things about you that you have your own shame about. So you have to give the person a chance. And if the partner can hear the person, and can, be mature enough to appreciate and get to know the person they're with, I mean,
Yeah.
literally, you
Mm.
know, that usually does the trick. The problem is, for some people, is they have more of a fantasy about who their partner is. And when the partner starts becoming a real person, which we all are, and not just, the the fantasy, that can be difficult for certain kinds of people who are not looking to be in reality.
Right.
And if you're with a person who is judging you when you open up, or is critical of you when you open up, um, you know, hopefully you'll have enough self-esteem to be able to decide whether or not that person's really right for you or not. But you do have to take the risk of letting yourself be known.
Well, I think if you look back at, I mean, what you're talking about, the attachment theory and finding people that perhaps don't actually fulfill the needs that we're looking for. I mean, if you're in that spot and you feel like something's not right or some needs not met, and you approach your partner about it, and ideally, if we have actually found the wrong partner, then even approaching them about it, what's going to change? Like, what's really going to help them start to meet our
Um,
needs if we've actually, if they've actually not that person that can meet our needs?
yeah, I mean, I do think that reveals itself earlier than later. The problem for an insecurely attached person is continue, they will identify with, well, maybe there is something wrong with my need, right? Well, maybe if I just accommodate and I do it this way, then it'll be okay. And that is a problem, right? But usually within 6 months, you can begin to tell whether or not the person is really good for you or not good for you. And then you have to have the ability to make a decision.
Mm.
Um, and if you put that decision off, you're going to go forward in the same kind of relationship, and it's probably not going to work out very well.
Yeah. What do you find most common, like in these situations where couples are addressing their needs with one another? Is there a similar pattern that pops up?
Well, yeah, I mean, people are, when we're the longer we're with someone, you know, on some level, the more that person becomes, we sort of make our partners over time into not, into our past a little bit.
Mm.
Like, and partners get triggered very easily. They get defensive very easily. Um, they can fight about, the most, mundane kinds of things,
Yeah.
and because the person is so important to us, and really kind of touches on old stuff in us.
Mm.
So the best thing that couples can do is to try to hear the other and to notice when they're getting defensive. And there are a couple of great techniques for that, listening techniques, where the first person, partner A, says how they feel, and partner B has to mirror back to partner A what they said.
Yeah.
And then partner A says, yes, that's how I feel, that's what I meant. Then partner B does it, and partner A has to mirror back to partner B. And the craziest thing is when both people feel heard, literally just heard, uh, that's about 70% of the issue. If two people feel seen and heard, forget about who's right or wrong. Just the fact that they have two subjectivities and their experience is being understood, that does a lot of good.
Mm.
Um, if they can't do that, then all the work is about just doing that, just just being heard. you know and couples trigger each other. Like I said, they become reflections of all of our own sensitivities.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think a lot of people have gone out there and met couples that don't actually fulfill their needs by searching for that insecure attachment that you were talking about?
I think that the people with certain types of insecure attachments who go after people who are not available to meet their needs. And the insecurely attached first needs to begin to have a relationship with themselves. I mean, they need to be able to be good to themselves by not putting themselves in situations where they're not getting their needs met. They have to take good care of themselves. They often don't do that either. So an insecurely attached person needs to become aware of that tendency.
Interesting.
Sorry, there's a New York City car blaring outside my window. So
New York City. Never been. Can't wait. Yeah, it's
oh yeah,
interesting. So
come
I
on.
think sometimes if you've got that insecure attachment and you search for someone that actually doesn't meet that need, it's likely that person, like you said, was much like your parent or caretaker that didn't give that.
Yeah, that's who you're looking for, a similar kind of person, unfortunately, who's also
Interesting.
usually not capable. Um, and if you do find somebody who's really available, that feels very unknown. That feels very strange. It feels very untethered to a person who didn't have that. And so they have to get accustomed to that, believe it or not. They
Yeah,
have to
it'd be
get
interesting
accustomed
to. I mean,
to
I'm just thinking of my own relationships, but it'd be interesting to see how that works in other relationships too. When you see the couples together and how they match, and I guess how they compare to the parents, if you know the parents as well.
Yeah,
There'll be some
it's true.
similarities, right? Is that right?
Yeah, well, there'll always be some similar. Yes, there are definitely similarities. again, the problem is when these things are more the extremes,
Right.
right? I mean, the in between is not really problematic. It's usually when it's more of the extremes sides of this,
Okay.
when
So when
you're
we're
too accommodating, or yeah, go on.
just looking at the reset your romantic GPS,
Yeah.
and we started on that by awareness. Any final thoughts on how we reset this romantic GPS? What should we be doing?
Yeah, there are a number of things you can do. I mean, I'm a big believer that 5 minutes of mindful meditation, which is
Yeah.
really just a breathing, and focusing on the breath, being with yourself
Yep.
for 5 minutes a day, you'd find it, you don't think it would be challenging, but it is. And if you can be, the more you can be with yourself and you realize there's a self to be with, that provides a real sense of stability, knowing that you have this self to be able to come back to.
Mm-hmm.
And the other ways of practicing are noticing cravings, for instance. So you have a craving for a person, you have a craving for food. Notice that craving. Um, think about, realize you're in a relationship with these kinds of things. You're in a relationship with the craving, and notice the feelings that are associated with it. Just begin to become aware of the kinds of things that drive us, that we long for, and as opposed to just being in the feeling and just reacting robotically, try to become aware of those moments. See if you can allow a little bit of choice to come into the picture. If I
Mm.
want this thing that's really bad for me, if I had a child, would I want my child to eat that? Right? And if the answer is no, what would it be like to not fulfill that craving for the moment? What feelings come up when you say no to something unhealthy? And be with those feelings. The more we can be what I call the discomfort of healthy choices, the more we can be with that discomfort, the better
Yeah,
off we
that's a
are.
really, really. I mean, we could go deep into this topic. Um, and I'm guessing there's a lot of people that are good at out there that can be comfortable
Yeah,
with the normal. But I think in this day and
there are.
age, what is normal anymore? And I think we're all hooked onto something to have this sense of escapism, whether it's drinking, drugs, social media,
Oh yeah, just
constant
social
seeking of
media.
attention, um,
Yeah,
addiction to whatever work, sex. I mean, there's just
yeah.
so much of it that we just
Yes,
crave.
the dopamine hits in with technology are just, it's pretty. If we watched ourselves, if we really could observe ourselves with these phones, it's scary.
Oh, it's amazing, and I try to be mindful of it. I use my phone for work all the time, so I'm on it at least 4 to 5
Well,
hours a day.
that's for work.
I know, but it's still there, and it still becomes an
It
attachment,
is. It is.
which it then makes it a bit harder
Right.
sometimes.
Right. Put the phone down for an hour for people and see what feelings come up when you don't, when you leave it there. Look at your phone and for an hour, I mean, 10 minutes to begin with, and see what feelings come up. You want to be in relationship to those uncomfortable feelings.
Mm.
Those are the ones that help you grow.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you think back, 20 years ago when we were kids, or actually, I wasn't a kid then, a bit longer than that now. But back in the day when we were kids, we didn't have any of this.
No.
We barely had TV,
Yeah.
and a couple of channels maybe. So it's going to be an interesting change. But Marc Sholes, thank you for coming on. Where can
Thank you.
people go to find out more about you? What's your best spot?
Yes. So the book is available on Amazon.
Uh-huh.
Reset Your Romantic GPS. And I have a website, Marc Sholes, lcsw.com. You can find me there. And I have social media. I also have an Instagram, Marc Sholes, LCSW. So, you can see some of my stuff there. And
I assume through your website they can find all your links to where you're hanging out, and obviously the book. We'll
yes,
stick the link into the show notes as well for everyone listening.
yeah,
Jump on there, click the link, support the show.
Yeah. And Lee, if you're ever in New York, you gotta come and say hello.
Oh, mate, I've never been to America. I've got so many, people like yourself that we've met, and I reckon I could probably stay for free in America.
Exactly.
Based on the connections. So one day, Mark. Thanks so much for coming on, guys. Check it out at thehiddenwhy.com. Until next time, peace, passion, and purpose. Thanks, guys, for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. I hope you love what you're hearing. If you like this episode, guys, or any of the episodes that you're listening to here at The Hidden Why, please do me a favor by sharing it. You can share it with your families, you can share it with your loved ones. You can do that by using your favorite social media channels, using the icons on the platform that you're listening to The Hidden Why podcast. Also, guys, if you're a fan of the show, please connect with me. Connect with me at thehiddenwhy.com. I love to hear from you. I love to converse with the people that listen to this show to find out what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy, and perhaps if they have any questions or feedback for the show as well. You can stay up to date with all that I'm releasing here, guys. I do a solo show every Monday, a 3-minute thought every Thursday. I do 2 interviews a week on a Wednesday and a Saturday, and a book review every Friday. You can stay up to date with all that by subscribing to my newsletter at thehiddenwhy.com. Just enter your email address there, and also subscribing to the podcast on the platform that you choose to listen to your podcasts. You can also support the show, guys, by using the Amazon links at thehiddenwhy.com. So if you like books, you can get all the books that I review there, and anything else really that you like to purchase through Amazon. So use that link and help support the show. And we've also got a deal with Audible, guys. Audible is a fantastic way to listen to all your favorite books. We've got a deal with them so you can get 2 free books when you subscribe, or subscribe to a 30-day free trial. So check that out again at thehiddenwhy.com. Guys, that's it from me. You know what to do. Go out there, breathe more passion into every single moment. Do everything with greater purpose, and in doing so you will discover your hidden why. This is The Hidden Why. My name is Lee Martinuzzi. Until next time, peace, passion and purpose. See you soon.